Hello everyone. Now, let's have a little talk about Chinese and Indian motorbikes and whether these things are allegedly junk that are not worth buying, or in actual fact, it's just showing a good value for money proposition. The important factor I want to cover here is the fact that past experiences may well be colouring perceptions. And one of those key things is the fact that the vast majority of sales of the Chinese and Indian motorbikes have always been in their home markets. And because of that, you need to look at the home markets and how they have developed. So with India and China, how the disposable income of the local residents has changed over the time, and how that has impacted the quality of motorcycles that they are making. So we're going to look at the figures comparing the United Kingdom, India, and China in terms of households' net disposable income. It's slightly crude, but it gives you an idea of growth. So if you look at these figures on the right here, you can see that they're quite closely packed together, showing that from 2016, which is the chart I've done here, you've got approximately 10% growth in gross household disposable income over this period in time. There's obviously been the usual dips going on here throughout the cycle that you'll see repeated on other charts. The Chinese one is slightly different here because we've got a bar graph, but what's quite noticeable here, in actual fact, is if you look at the side scale here, growth has roughly doubled the Chinese household disposable income from 2013 up to 2024. So if you look at these figures on the side here, you can see that's from below 29 to above 51. And then we move on to India, and this is the most spectacular growth of disposable personal income of the three countries. So you can see here, you're looking at 300 million in 2023-24, approximately, give or take, and you go back to 2013, and that's down to just a mere 115 million. But it gives you an idea that they've almost trebled their disposable income in the last 10 years. Not quite, but almost. And when you consider that to other places, it makes it quite pertinent as to what that has had impact on the sales. So in this comparison, I'm just simply going to use the AI overview to give an order of scale of the figures here. So if we look at the total motorbike sales in India in 2024, we're looking at 20.5 million units. And that's on that backdrop of the growth in income that I've just shown. So you're getting a higher quality bikes being sold to those consumers, and the market is also growing. So everything is in the upward markers here. You'll see Royal Enfield isn't particularly mentioned on this one, being quite a well-known brand, but you've got Honda selling 6 million units, Hero selling 6 million bikes, TVS and Bajaj between them with just over 6 million bikes in terms of sales, which are all deeply impressive figures and relate back to the quality of the market for motorbikes. China, on the other hand, is quite different because they've had a reduction in sales briefly, but they are recovering and moving still 16 to 17 million units in 2023. What's also key in these comparisons is that China does export a huge amount of their products overseas. But it does say here that China is one of the world's largest motorcycle markets, with India and Indonesia. Really, you don't get Indonesian product sold and manufactured and sold in Europe to any great degree. So that's why I've chosen India and China for the comparison. But Indonesia is much more of a small capacity market. What we're going to do next is compare these Indian sales and Chinese sales of motorbikes over to the European motorbike sales. So the whole of Europe, not just one country, is 1 million total unit sales. An absolute fraction of the Asian market. We don't really see that much going on in the UK. It's a slowly declining market. There's been no particular support for the product really since the 50s, and that's probably part of the reason why we went from being the largest motorcycle manufacturers to having nothing, essentially. But France and Germany are also showing sharp declines. So with this, you can see that the Northern European market in general is suffering a bit of shrinkage, and these are also what you describe as luxury sales. And what's also interesting here is it's pulled out the fact that there's a shift away from mopeds, which I have to say, when I went to Motorcycle Live, it's quite noticeable how sparse the interest was on the moped stands. If you saw my little comedy sketch on Peugeot, I walked past it 3 times on the day I was there. And when I went on the stand myself, I comfortably doubled the number of people that I saw that had been on it. It really was a ghost town, that particular stand. When I went over to Yamazaki, by comparison, tiny stand, but it had people all over it. I also went over to the Royal Alloy stand, and again, the product looked amazing, but I had plenty of room to move when I was on the stand. Now, refer you back to those charts. So I think those charts are quite important in terms of the available disposable spending within the markets, because there was both India and China were showing significant growth, and what I've found in my dealings with Chinese companies is that if you spend over a certain amount, the quality radically improves, and also the longevity of the product massively improves. So it's not that they can't make it. What they're doing is they are saying, well, you want to meet this price point, we will sell you a bike at this price point. It's not for us to tell you that it won't last. You want to buy it, and we will sell it to you. That's how it works. And also there is that point where you saw in those graphs where the income was increasing, that the consumers in those markets will also go, no, we want reliability, we want quality, we want fit and finish, we want after-sales service, because we're going to be spending more money on a better product. And when there is more money sloshing around for a better product, the factories and their resellers have more money to offer that better service. Now, I would say personally, the shift was somewhere between 2017 and 2019, depending on the individual factories. Prior to that date, a lot of the stuff was pretty cheap and nasty that was being sold here. The Royal Enfields that were being sold here were pretty fragile. They were the Indian market product. The Chinese bikes, very thin plastics, very brittle plastics. They just didn't last because they were just made down to a price. Now, you can still buy product that is made down to a price, but that is thinning out, and you're getting more and more better quality product. And they also, in fairness, they are now looking at distributors to see, can you actually distribute our product? Because they don't want to. They're realizing that if they can't distribute the product, it's not about the sale today. It's the sale next week, the sale next year. These won't happen if the distributor is hopeless. Various distributors have indeed been changed in this market, and they are coalescing, and there are, again, not a huge number of distributors like all the little cottage ones that there were 5-6 years ago, where I suppose you could look at Mutt. They were quite a small business working on fashion. However, what really mattered was they cut quality to make a profit, and eventually people turned around and said, no, I will spend the little bit extra on products that are available in the market now that weren't available when they started, for something that I'll have actually customer support on, and it won't fail every 5 minutes, or I won't need an ECU repaired. It's when you're dealing with the entry point of the market, often as not, the expectations of the buyer are at their highest. I've always found this in sales, that by necessity, the less money you have, the more you absolutely need that product to work, and to work reliably for you. So it's kind of that trap that someone goes out looking for a cheap car or cheap motorbike. They have so little to follow up with that. It has to work. If it doesn't work, it's a disaster. If you've got the money to buy a £25,000 BMW bike odds are you've got the access to other forms of transport as well, and your life will not be massively impacted. You will be disjointed, but you will not be massively impacted if that bike ceases to work and needs repair. So it's a very different marketplace, and all these sellers are working these things out. So what I would say is, it's not the fact that Chinese or stroke Indian or stroke Asian bikes in general are good or bad. It's down to, are the importers good or bad? Are they selecting the models that are right for this market? Are they what you need? So it's no point in saying the Chinese bike is a bad, cheap and nasty bike. That's consigned to the history book now. What it's more about is, do I have confidence in the shop that I'm going to buy it from? Will they be here in 2 years' time? Because I've heard that insane stories about shops where they're selling motorbikes, like a 125, and they're not offering any form of after sales. There's no servicing, there's no warranty repairs. All they're doing is selling a bike, and then you've got some 18-year-old kid rolling around on a 125 that stops working, and they've got nowhere to go. And this is massively impactful. And these people are allowed to be dealers by the distributor. So that's where the distributor is absolutely key to the product. You can't really separate the two. So I am not going to say X distributor is good, X distributor is bad, because frankly, I'm not enough of an industry expert to be able to make that judgment. What I would say is you just follow the same buying practices that you normally do for buying a bike. Go and see the bike. I mean, if you're buying a 125, odds are you won't get a demonstrator, because odds are you won't have a license to ride. So the insurance is perhaps prohibitive for the seller to offer you a test ride. But make sure you fit on the bike, and just use the smell test. Do the contact points feel nice? Do I fit on this bike? Does it feel solid? All these things are perceptions that you can't really measure, but you've also got to balance that with, can I afford it? So there's the finance plan or the purchase price, the warranty, the dealer, the distributor, all the normal stuff that you go through when you're looking at making a purchase, which you don't really think of, because all the car distributors now are, broadly speaking, so established that you don't really think about car distribution anymore. But it was the same in the past. The companies were coming and going, and you'd be left high and dry without warranty cover. If someone suddenly pulled out the market, it's more happened in the United States, I think, than it has in Europe, because there are laws that govern distribution, especially when you're into the bigger numbers. I think the small distributors do get little opt-outs to allow them to start off, but still, that allows people to enter the space and maybe look at the short-term return rather than building a business. But those are my thoughts. If you've got anything that you'd like to add, please put them in the comments below. If you've got any other suggestions of stuff that I ought to look at, please put in the comments below. And please like, share, comment. And if you see the hype button, boop, boop, give us a hype. I've never had one yet. You never know, might get one now. But anyway, look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye for now.